But share with us a little about this guy under 40 who...
Actually, I wrote about him in my first book, What Southern Women Know. And I met him one night. I was flying back from L.A., and it was one of those horrendous trips. And at that time, he worked for Delta. And I had sat on the runway in L.A. It had been awful. I got to the airport, my luggage lost. It's midnight. It's pouring down rain. And I see this guy, and I'm going to go over there and let him have it. And I mean, because I'm at my wit's end.
Right.
And as I get to him, I suddenly go, wait a minute. This guy's had a hard day too, probably. Right. A lot of luggage lost. I'm going to be nice.
Oh, yeah.
So when I get over to him, I said, you look like just the one who could help me. And he said, I bet I can. What do you need? And I said, my luggage is lost. And I mean, he just immediately got on, found my luggage, they put it on another plane, they deferred it, brought it back to me. And I said, now, I should get some coupons or something free for this. And he said, yeah. So he just starts giving me all these coupons. And we just struck up this great friendship. And he actually is a great friend of mine. I don't really see him very often. And since I wrote, honestly.
No, that's fine.
Honestly, the last time I saw him was probably about 3 months ago. We had dinner one night, but I don't see him very much. His name's Heath. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Yeah.
But he's become a great friend. And my great story about that is this, that you do win so much more with kindness than, I had every right to be antagonistic. And I mean, because it had been a day of horrible incidences. But I tried kindness, and I won a great friend out of it. Got a lot of free coupons for the airline, so try it.
I love it. It was not only the standing ovation in the room last Thursday at the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce 67th annual meeting. It was the standing ovation back at the set of The View when the producers and other folks in the back there were clearly standing up the standing ovation because you did exactly what you just said. Using kindness as opposed to coming back with snappy answers or otherwise being aggressive here. Now would have been a great time to come back at me and open up about something else fun, but at the same time you opened up and shared with us about Heath and that great story. We got about 5 minutes.
Great stories.
Oh, absolutely.
They're great stories, and we find great. I mean, that's why I believe I was born to be a storyteller, because great stories find me. I walk out and I just see a great story. I meet a lot of people on airplanes and in airports that become great friends of mine. Here's my favorite story, and I wrote about this. You've run it in the Herald, but I was in L.A. a few months ago. And had a couple of friends. Your friend, John Maroney, was with us, and we were at the Polo Lounge.
Oh, yeah.
John had wanted to take us to the Polo Lounge. And he, of course, is from North Carolina originally. So John's sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and I had taken one of my girlfriends with me as a treat. I'd given her the trip because she had done some window treatments for me. And we're chattering. We're all Southerners. And this man leans over, and he goes, where y'all from? And I said, well, I'm from Georgia, and they're both from North Carolina. He said, Birmingham, Alabama. And we strike up this conversation, and we say to the guy, what are you doing here? And he said, I sell coffee. And we said, really? And he said, I'm here trying to break into the L.A. market. And he gives us a card, and he's with a company called Royal Cup Coffee. And my girlfriend said, that's my favorite coffee. My husband owns a Jiffy Lube, and that's all he will serve is that. And he said, when I get back, I'm going to send y'all coffee. And okay. So we give him our cards. Next day, my girlfriend says, I think he'll really send us coffee. I said, well, that man forgot us the moment he walked out of there. And she starts digging in her purse, and I said, what's his title? And she said, it says president. I said, president? Well, his name's Hatton Smith. 3 days later, big box of Royal Cup coffee arrives. Huge box. I call him up to thank him. I said, what's your wife's name? I'm going to send you a copy of What Southern Women Know. Because that's the way Southerners are. You can't outdo us. You can't outgive us. You give us something, we got to give you something back. And now Hatton Smith's become a great friend of mine. And out of that was born a great story that someone else read that column and wrote me and said, I sell waffles for Waffle House.
Oh, boy.
And he said, we buy all of our coffee from Hatton Smith, and he is that kind of guy. He keeps his word, and he's a true Southerner. And this guy by the name of Walt Emmer, we become good friends and, just start talking. And I'm talking to Hatton one day, and I said, hey, I've made a new friend. He works for Waffle House. And he said, yeah, Walt, he's president of Waffle House. I said,
No.
Walt is president of Waffle House?
You're
He
kidding.
didn't tell me he's president. We've been friends for 3 or 4 months talking. Didn't even know he was president.
No, Rhonda. I love it. I love it.
Great stories, just how one leads to another and friendships are made.
Absolutely. We got about 5 minutes, and I mentioned The View, and I love that story. Folks need to catch you in person or see you live to hear great stories like that. Is that right? I mean, you don't let all your secrets out of the bag on air. I mean, those are tremendous things.
Right.
You did share with folks, though, about what it takes to get a bestseller. I mean, folks want to know that. They obviously hear about it.
Well, you always have to get a break. You've got to get a good piece of media, and sometimes if you get a good piece of media, it still doesn't work. I did an interview early on The View. And Barbara Walters is a bit tough on me. I tell that story.
Right, yeah, great story, sure. Folks need to hear it live time.
Yeah, and it really was one of those things that really sparked a lot of chatter, chatter on the internet, and people talking, girlfriends would say, did you see that interview, and did you see how that Ronda Rich was treated, and they went on the line and they started looking up and they found what Southern women know, and it really gave us a bestseller. I mean, that book is a perennial bestseller every year. It's been out for several years now.
And it's 26, not to cut you off, 26 or 27th printing.
Headed to its 27th print.
What is that like, Ron? I mean, just to say that I've penned a book, and that was in the late 90s?
Yeah, 99 was when the hardcover came out.
So 8 years ago, and to think now it's in its 26th printing, that's incredible.
And not only that, but it really spawned for me an entire cottage industry.
Right.
Because from that was born my speaking engagements, where I did a lot of Southern storytelling, my newspaper column, product sales, everything that came from that. It's just, it's pretty incredible. I was naive. Everybody thinks they can write a book, I think. I think we all do have a book in us, and it's finding it, and it's putting it on paper and doing it in a way where people can tell the story and enjoy it when they read it. And that's what happened with What Southern Women Know. It just was a lovely, lovely accident for me. I wrote it completely an idea of an agent in New York who loved the South, who thought that Southern women really had some kind of recipe for success that the rest of the world didn't have.
This was an agent in New York from the South?
Right, no, he grew up, born and bred in Manhattan.
Really?
I mean, he was probably a 3rd or 4th generation New Yorker.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Wow.
One of the loveliest men I've ever known, Richard Curtis, and just a very kind, gracious man, just very lovely. And he actually, I taught him about the South, and he taught me about the Jewish people. I learned a lot from him.
Right?
Oh yeah, I learned things from him that he was just a wealth of information, things that, because I never realized until I met Richard Curtis that the Jewish people didn't name their children Junior or Second or Third.
Really? Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Just very fascinating stuff. So we were both great teachers to each other.
We've got a couple of minutes. We want to get you back tomorrow to talk about My Life in the Pits, of course, the town that came a-courtin', and what Southern women know about flirting. But I think a comment you made just in a couple minutes, that idea that everyone's got a book in them. For our viewers that are sitting home now with the idea of, I want to get a book out, I think I've got one in me. What are some of the steps that they should take? Just in a couple minutes, what are some of the steps they should take to think about doing that? Well,
first of all, you need to translate the thought onto paper, because until you do it, you don't know you can do it. Okay? And I always tell people what you do is simply sit down and write the story as you would tell it to somebody that you were sitting there talking to. You just put it down the same way you would talk it out. The second thing is I always recommend a great book by the name of the Guide to Literary Agents. And that, if someone buys that book and they read it, they can tell what agents represent what properties. So obviously if you're writing romance fiction, you don't want someone who only represents science fiction to rep you. And then you query people. And it's writing a great query letter. If you can sell an agent to believe that you can write this book and sell it, that's a major part of the step right there. So you got to sell the agent first. Yeah, and you can't sell a book without having an agent.
A viewer cannot get their book out without having an agent.
No, unless they self-publish. They can self-publish, but the best step is to be an agent. get an agent.
That's great advice. Folks can learn about you online at whatsouthernwomenknow.com. Whatsouthernwomenknow.com.
Or it's also RondaRich.com, Ronda without an H.
Good. RONDA Rich.com.
Right.
That's great. Absolutely. And of course, for folks who can't be with us tomorrow, they need to go online literally to learn about some of there's some great feedback on there about my life in the pits, and obviously talking about your tremendous both respect and love of some of the amazing men and women in NASCAR.
And NASCAR,
right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. Can't wait to see you hopefully tomorrow morning. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Ronda Rich coming up next. You've got to come back to be with us tomorrow. You've got to come back. There's 3 books. We started talking about her first book, but listen to what the New York Times called My Life in the Pits, one of the greatest sports books ever written. One of the greatest sports books ever written. And the very exciting aspect, her last 2 books that came out in 04 or 05 were published on the exact same day by the same author. First time in publishing history. Same day. You got to come back tomorrow. Happy Halloween, Emma Claire.